All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg. A bonus episode for you here with some breaking rumors on draft day. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you click that subscribe button while you're here on YouTube. Make sure you are following us on your podcast app. Also, make sure to tune into our live draft show on YouTube starting at 7:30 Eastern, half an hour before the start of the NBA draft. We'll have all the latest on what the Heat are going to do with the 20th pick, as well as our instant reactions when they do make the pick. But I want to get to this report from The Athletic. Anthony Slater went to Cleveland, where Jonathan Kuminga is doing his offseason training, and wrote a piece about Kuminga's future, about how he wants a bigger role and a chance to be a featured player for a team. Jonathan Kuminga is a restricted free agent this summer. It's the biggest story among Warriors fans right now about what are they going to do with Kuminga. He doesn't really fit into Golden State's long-term plans. He doesn't get many shots when Steph and now Jimmy Butler are on the court. After Steph got hurt, Kuminga did get a little bit more time in the playoffs, but before Steph's injury, Steve Kerr basically took him out of the rotation. Not basically, he took him out of the rotation. He wasn't a part of their playoff rotation, and it hasn't really clicked with him in Golden State. So here's what Slater wrote. I'm going to put it up on the screen here on YouTube. Quote, the Kevin Durant trade might have helped. The Miami Heat missed out on Durant and have legitimate Kuminga interest, per league sources, among others expected to explore the idea as the market materializes. The Brooklyn Nets loom as a possible offer sheet team, but did use a chunk of their cap space in a Tuesday night trade. So the Nets part of this is important because they took on the Terrence Mann contract into their cap space, which wasn't a ton of money. It's about $15 million, but they just don't have as much cap space to use, where they had like $40, $50 million, something like that in space. So now they can't just go and, I mean, I guess they still could. I don't know how motivated they would be to just go and throw this huge max offer on a guy in Kuminga who has a ton of talent, but hasn't really shown it consistently at the NBA level yet. Is that really what they want to be doing with their cap space? Probably not. Not to the degree, to the point of where it'd be like too much for Golden State to even bother matching it, right? Because Kuminga's a restricted free agent. So even if a team like Brooklyn were to come in and offer him a huge contract, Golden State still has the right of first refusal. They can match it, and then Kuminga is back on the roster. And that's why I think most people in Golden State and around that team believe that Kuminga will probably just re-sign a deal with the Warriors as a restricted free agent, because there's just not a lot of cap space out there this summer. And we don't know what teams are even motivated to go after Kuminga and throw a bunch of money at him. And it might just make more sense for Golden State to bring him back, even though he doesn't fit, and then just try to trade him around the trade deadline, maybe when there's more options open. But again, to Slater's report here, now that the Heat missed out on Kevin Durant, and it didn't ever really feel like they were that in on Kevin Durant, who's going to be 37 at the start of the season, do they actually want to go younger and go after a guy like Kuminga, who David and I talk about this all the time on the show? Second draft guys who didn't necessarily work out in their first stops, but maybe they just need a change of scenery, a new team, a new situation. And there's no questioning Kuminga's talent, right? He can average double-digit points. You know, the defense kind of comes and goes, but when it's on in a big way. There's real two-way potential with him. The outside jumper is the big swing factor with him. He doesn't really, you have to kind of beg him to rebound. You kind of he's inconsistent motor defensively, and offensively, he wants to be a featured guy. He doesn't really want to be a guy who plays off of somebody like Steph and Jimmy Butler, who's mostly used as a cutter and stuff like that. He wants the ball in his hands. He wants to take mid-range shots. This is a guy who grew up idolizing Kobe Bryant. I did a story on Kuminga his rookie year, and he was talking to me about how he used to go to an internet cafe and just pull up YouTube clips of Kobe Bryant and just study them and study the footwork and then try to recreate the moves outside later in the day. This is a guy who really wants an opportunity. So you can look at that as a positive and a negative, right? Like, the positive is he wants more, and you can only get more if you want more. That's kind of how the NBA works. On the flip side of it is he doesn't really do a good job fitting into a role. But if Miami is looking for somebody to just throw the rock to and be a featured guy, in addition to Bam and Tyler Hero, Kuminga wouldn't be playing off of them the way that he would be playing off of somebody like Steph, who is just a system unto himself, right? It's very complicated to play with somebody like Steph Curry because he is the entire system. In Miami, even playing with guys like Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, it's just a little bit more straightforward. You can give him the ball in the low post. He could go to work. He can kick out to Tyler Hero. You know, he could throw that lob to Bam Adebayo or whatever it might be. But here's the other part that I wanted to get to. from Slater's story here, and I do encourage you to go ahead and check it out on The Athletic in full. But, quote, this is what Jonathan Kuminga told Slater. That's what's been on my mind in terms of being more of a featured guy. That's what's been on my mind. Things take time, but I feel like I'm at the point where that has to be my priority, to just be one of the guys a team relies on, aiming to be an all-star multiple times, aiming to be great. Wherever I'm going to be at, if it don't matter if it's with the Warriors or if it's anywhere else, it's something that I want. I want to see what I can do. I know I got it, so I want to really see. I've never got that chance, end quote. This is a guy who wants it. He wants it desperately. It doesn't mean it's going to work out, but he's clearly looking for a change of scenery. And if it was up to Kuminga, I'm sure he would rather be an unrestricted free agent. Unfortunately, he's restricted. So how do the Heat get him? It's complicated. I'll talk about that in a second here. But first, today's One More Thing here on Locked On Heat is brought to you by Open Phone. If you are running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe a plumber or for a service provider. If the first person did not answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or your computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI-generated calls, their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OpenPhone, OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have an existing number with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. How can the Miami Heat get Jonathan Kuminga if they are indeed interested in Kuminga? And by the way, Slater does great reporting here. I believe it when he says it. He's also not the first person to link Kuminga and Miami. My big question was whether or not that reported interest was Miami maybe trying to get Kuminga in the original Jimmy Butler deal at the trade deadline. You've heard things about how they've investigated Kuminga, they've done their due diligence on the Kuminga and all these things. Was that just background back in February that we're now hearing about now? Or is this recent stuff? And from Slater's reporting, it sounds like it's more recent. It sounds like this is something that could happen potentially. Why did it not happen in February? Well, number one, Miami lost all their leverage in the Jimmy Butler stuff. Maybe had they traded Jimmy Butler earlier in the season, they could have gotten Kuminga. The other part of this was the salary matching part, right? It was kind of hard for Golden State to put Kuminga in the deal. If they were also, it was basically like Kuminga or Kyle Anderson. It wasn't like a Kuminga or Wiggins situation. And at that point in February, Wiggins plus Kuminga plus a draft pick was probably going to be too much for Jimmy Butler when all the other options dried up. So Miami didn't have leverage to go ahead and get Kuminga. The salary matching part of it was also complicated back then. But that becomes a little bit easier now in the offseason. So maybe Miami figured in February, look, we can't get Kuminga now, but maybe we can revisit Kuminga in the offseason. That might be what's going on here, especially now that they've missed out on Kevin Durant, and maybe they want to go younger. Jonathan Kuminga is still really young. He's obviously going to get a new contract here, but he's 22 years old. Bam's 27. Tyler's 25. He's a little bit younger than those guys, but he's super talented. Honestly, I've not been the biggest Kuminga guy. I just haven't liked what he's looked like in Golden State. I don't like guys where you have to just beg and plead for them to do winning things. But again, these are the risks. These are the buy low chances that you take on those second draft guys who have a ton of talent. The talent is undeniable. And if Miami thinks that they can get more out of Kuminga, then it could be worth the risk depending on what it costs. So how can the Heat get Jonathan Kuminga now? The number one well, again, they're hard. Going back to the restricted free agency part of this, Miami does not have cap space, so they can't just offer Kuminga a bunch of money to the point where Golden State just doesn't offer it. Miami doesn't have any cap space, so they can't do it. However, they can do it via sign and trade, which is a little bit more complicated. So number one, if you're going to pull off a sign and trade, if you're going to complete a sign and trade, you are, under the new CBA, immediately hard capped at the first apron. Fortunately, that should not be a problem for the Heat. They have about $18 million with a pretty full roster below that first apron. And assuming that there's salary going back to Golden State in a sign and trade, you'll have even a little bit more of a cushion to work with there. Something would have to go back to Golden State, though. Would they like to have Andrew Wiggins back? That, to me, is the interesting name. Wiggins is a much cleaner fit with Steph and with Jimmy Butler. He could space the floor, plays defense. is very, very happy, almost, I would say, prefers to play more of that supporting cast role than be a featured player, where that's what Kuminga wants to do now. If you could swap Wiggins for Kuminga, I wonder if Golden State wouldn't just be like, you know what? Our window's now. Wiggins works with us. We love him in this locker room. He's an easy fit. He loved being here. There's no other real takers for Kuminga in the sign and trade market. Screw it. Let's just do it, right? I wonder if that's where this ends up. There's other options, right? I don't know if Golden State would be interested in Duncan Robinson's non-guaranteed salary. Would they be interested in Rozier's expiring? I don't think so. Again, this is a team in win now mode, not necessarily a team that's looking to save money, even though they do have to be money conscious considering where they are against the aprons and the salary cap and payroll and all that stuff. But I don't think they would be interested. If it was basically just Duncan Robinson or Terry Rozier's contract, I think they would honestly just prefer to re-sign Kuminga and just deal with it at the trade deadline and see if they can get something better then, right? Like, they do not have to make this decision now. They could try to bring Kuminga back, see if it works, and if it does work, great. Lottery pick popped. That's awesome. And if not, you could still trade him by February. But again, I go back to the Wiggins thing here. If Miami just called him up and said, hey, look, we couldn't do Wiggins. We couldn't put Kuminga in that Wiggins spot in the Jimmy Butler trade back then because of salary matching. But what if we just swap him now? You take Wiggins back. He was a fit for you there in Golden State. He loved being there. He likes playing that supporting role. He's an easier fit with Steph and Jimmy Butler. You guys are looking to make a run in the Western Conference. You guys are in win now mode. Take Wiggins. Proof of concept. You know he works there. And we'll just take Kuminga off your hands. And maybe it's a contract worth a little bit more, around $30 million a year for Kuminga. Does he hold out for more? Maybe. Maybe it's 35. Maybe it's 40. I don't know if that's too expensive for Miami at this point. But I wonder if you could get Golden State to bite by just being like, hey, do you want Wiggins back? It's interesting. We'll cover this more. I mean, there's a ton going on in the NBA. I just wanted to hop on here really quick and talk a little bit about Jonathan Kuminga. Make sure you tune in later on. Live draft show. David and I will be at Kaseya Center for the Miami Heat's watch party. So if you're going to be there, stop by, say hi. If not, you could check us out on YouTube live starting 7:30 Eastern time. We are going to be recording for the half hour before the start of the draft, and then we'll be popping on again for our instant reactions to what Miami does in the draft, whether it's a 20 or whatever ends up happening here. And then we'll have another full episode breaking down the pick and whatever else happens on draft night after that. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day.